Hi, this is Shihan Hussaini. You can call me Who. Founder of the Archery Association of Tamil Nadu, Director of the Who Archery Mission, and certified Level 3 coach from World Archery. You are in the Level 2 Archery Coaches Training and Certification Program organized by the Archery Association of Tamil Nadu and the Who Archery Mission. Specialization, Compound Archery. What you are going to learn today in this session is syllabus prescribed by World Archery, the supreme body of archery in the world. Today we will deal with the following 4 sections. 1. An introduction to the compound bow. 2. The most popular brands and the latest models. 3. How the compound bow works. And 4. The history of the invention of the compound bow. Please forgive my constantly yapping African grey parrot's daughter Willu, who will be disturbing us from her room behind. Learn to ignore her and focus. The compound bow is without debate one of the most famous types of bow, which is very, very popular among archers all over the world today. It looks sleek, sophisticated, and is a joy in the hands of the shooter. Any compound shooter would vouch for the fact what a great exhilaration it is to hold a modern advanced compound bow for the first time in full draw, anchor, ready to shoot. Wow! Compound bows come in various types, different brands and flashy colors, including the very, very popular camouflage, which is a rage among archers who hunt. There are 2 kinds of bows available. One kind is used in target archery at a fixed target, and the other which is used for hunting animals or shooting at animal models in field and 3D archery. We will restrict ourselves now only to target compound archery. The compound bow is used in target archery competitions by World Archery and its affiliate national federations, as well as state and district associations attached under the national body. The compound bow is a separate division in target archery competitions conducted by World Archery, which includes the World Championships, the World Cups, the Indoor World Events, the Continental Games, the Commonwealth Games, National Games, and of course, all the national championships conducted by the respective national federations, in our case, the Archery Association of India, which are affiliated to World Archery. There are several popular brands of target compound bows available in the market now. Let's see the latest models from the best companies. Hoyt Archery has Invicta 37 SVX, Invicta 40 SVX, Invicta 37 DCX and Invicta 40 DCX, which are the latest target compound bows. Matthews Archery in its latest selection has TRX 38 G2, TRX and TRX 34, which are excellent target bows. PAC Archery's latest bows for target archery are Citation SE, Citation EM, Laser, Perform X and Supra Focus. Expedition Archery, another company, has introduced Perfection Series target bows. The latest introductions from Martin's Archery are Legend 730, Axon 7, AXT 39. Elite Archery's latest target bows are Result 36 and Result. Bowtech, another archery company, has introduced Specialist and Reckoning 38. Excellent target bows. And finally, Diamond Infinite's Edge Pro is also a very, very good bow. You won't be able to decide which bow to buy unless you understand the basics of compound archery. Without understanding, you just can't order a bow. As a coach, you will be responsible for guiding the compound archery beginner as to which bow he or she must buy. So we will deal about this after we learn everything about the specifications, techniques and principles of shooting with a compound bow. And whether you are a hobby archer or a professional archer, the experience of shooting with a compound bow can be absolutely exhilarating. You must use a compound bow to understand what the hell I'm talking about. Whether you have shot with a compound bow earlier or not, all of you as a level 3 archery coach trainees will undergo the experience of shooting with a compound bow in your practical sessions in your training program. Well, now let's move into the next section, section 2, where we will deal with how the compound bow works and who invented the compound bow and why. In the compound bow, the pulley cam system grants the use of a mechanical advantage, and so the limbs of a compound bow are much stiffer than those of a recurve bow or the longbow, the English longbow. This rigidity makes the compound bow more energy efficient than all other bows, as less energy is dissipated in limb movement. The higher rigidity, higher technology construction also improves accuracy by reducing the bow's sensitivity to changes in temperature and humidity. The pulley cam system also confers a benefit called the let-off. As the string is drawn back, the cams rotate. The cams are eccentric rather than round. Eccentric, so that effective radius changes as they rotate. Each of a compound bow's 2 cams features 2 tracks. The inner track, which connects the opposite limb or opposite cam through cables, and an outer track through which the bowstring runs. As the bow is drawn, the ratio of bowstring payout and cable take-up relative to limb weight and leverage of the cam changes. By manipulation of the shapes of these cam tracks, different drawstroke profiles can be created. A compound bow can be soft drawing with a slow build-up to peak weight and a gradual let-off with a long valley at the end. You can also be hard drawing with a fast build-up to peak draw weight, a long plateau where the weight is maintained, and a quick let-off with a short valley. The let-off itself is the result of the cam profiles having passed center and approaching a condition very similar to a cam lock. In some compound bows, if the draw stops or draw length modules are removed, they will self-lock at full draw and require professional equipment to unlock safely. Many compound bows offer 70 to 85% let-off once they are pulled to full draw. This allows the shooter to relax and concentrate the intended target at which they are shooting. They can hold it for a long period. A bow's central mount for other components such as the limbs, the sights, the stabilizers and quivers is called a riser. Risers are designed to be as rigid as possible. The central riser of a compound bow is usually made of aluminum, magnesium alloy or carbon fiber, and many are made of 70-75 aluminum alloy. Limbs are made of fiberglass based composite materials and are capable of taking high tensile and compressive forces. The limbs store all the energy of the bow. No energy is stored in the pulleys and the cables. Draw weights of adult compound bow generally fall between 40 and 80 pounds, about 18 and 36 kilograms, enabling arrow speeds of 250 to 370 feet per second, about 76 to 130 meters per second. In the most common configuration, there is a cam or wheel at the end of each limb. The shape of the cam may vary somewhat between different bow designs. But every bow is absolutely different. There are several different concepts of using the cams to store energy in the limbs. And these all fall under a category called bow eccentrics. The 4 most common types of bow eccentrics are single cam, hybrid cam, dual cam, and binary cam. However, there is also other less common designs like the quad cam and the hinged compound bow. Cams are often described using the let-off rating As the cam is rotated, the force required to hold the bow in position reaches a peak and then decreases as the bow approaches maximum extension, a position known as the wall. The percent difference between the maximum force encountered during the draw and the force required to hold the bow in full extension in the anchor is the let-off. It's called the let-off. This value is commonly between 65% and 80% of the peak weight for recently designed compound bows. Although some older compound bows provided a let-off of only 50% and some recent designs achieve let-offs in excess of 90%. As the string is drawn, the cam turns and imparts force to compress the limb. Initially, the archer has the short side of the cam, the short side, with the leverage being a mechanical advantage. High energy input is therefore required. When near full draw is reached, the cam has turned to its full extent, the archer gains mechanical advantage. And the least amount of force needs to be applied to the string to keep the limbs bent. This is again, let me tell you, known as the let-off. The lower holding weight enables the archer to maintain the pull fully drawn and take more time to aim. This let-off enables the archer to accurately shoot a compound bow with a much higher peak draw weight than other bows. However, there are some youth-oriented compound bows with very low draw weights that have no let-off and have a maximum draw length deliberately set farther than the majority of young shooters would reach. This, what does it do? It effectively makes the bow function very similar to a recurve. It's almost like a recurve bow with a draw length determined by the shooter's preferred anchor point. This removes the necessity to adjust the bow draw length or use a different bow for different shooters, or to change bows as the shooter becomes older and his draw length increases. An example of this type of bow is the Genesis, which is standard equipment for many beginners of compound archery. Compound bow strings and cables are normally made of high modulus polyethylene and are designed to have great tensile strength and minimal stretchability so that the bow transfers its energy to the arrow as efficiently and durably as possible. In earlier models of compound bows, the cables were often made of plastic-coated steel. Well, you must have got an idea of how the compound bow functions. So having said that, for those of you who have found my narrative fast, I could not follow the language clearly, please rewind and listen again. You could plug on a headphone or earphones and keep listening to this lesson many times till you understand it well. For those of you who still have doubts, hey, I will clarify it in the direct practical sessions when you are going to have it. Now let's see. Who invented the compound bow? The history of the compound bow. Horace William Allen Jr., an American inventor and manufacturer, may be the most unsung inventor in history. Nobody appreciated him. In the mid-1960s, Allen took a device, the bow, that stood relatively unchanged for several thousand years, and transformed it into a more powerful, more accurate device, shooting faster arrows with less effort from the archer. Allen invented the compound bow. The hunting bows of his day, recurve bows or long bows that looked very much like bows used during the 100 Years' War, required only 70 pounds of force to draw the string, called draw weight, and shot arrows within a velocity of perhaps 175 feet per second, FPS. The most inconvenient feature of such a bow was that you had to maintain that 70 pounds of draw while trying to aim at a target, which was very difficult to do. So Allen read some books on physics. He was not a physicist, he just read some books on physics, learned about energy storage and transfer, and tried to find a better way to take the energy of the draw and store it more efficiently in the bow limbs. while reducing the continuous effort required from the archer. Allen found he could do this by adding pulleys and extra cables to the limbs of the bow, which allowed the draw power to be constant rather than gradually increasing as with a long bow. And he also found a way to arrange pulleys so that the weight of the draw was greatly reduced during the last part, so that one could aim the bow without straining at the same time to keep the bowstring under tension. Using physics as his guide, Allen built bows equipped with cables and wheels to act as force multipliers to boost arrow speeds. He eventually crafted an effective design and introduced the Allen compound bow to the market in 1967. Allen patented his compound bow in, I think, 1969. That early four-wheel compound didn't fare well commercially, so Allen joined hands with another designer, Tom Jennings, to make improvements to the design. Jennings and Allen released the Model T in 1974. This met with a huge commercial success. That wildly popular bow had only two wheels and was lighter and easier to shoot. 1974, 8 companies were making compound bows. But just 3 years later, several hundred manufacturers emerged, and together they offered archers over hundreds of models. The compound bow evolved so rapidly and expanded Allen's wish to boost arrow speed while decreasing the amount of strength required to achieve greater speeds. Many of the early compound limbs featured solid fiberglass or a combination of wood and fiberglass. Today's limbs might use carbon, fiberglass or composite materials. Those early limbs also stood nearly vertical, while today they are more parallel. Modern designs generate greater arrow speeds with less vibration. Well guys, the early compound cams were small, round wheels. They served like their function but grew larger over time and took on oblong shapes to increase let-off and further boost arrow speeds. Martin's archery dynamo in the late 1970s was the first single cam bow. Its lone cam mounted to the bottom limb, which was more of a rigid aluminum arm. 2 cables connected to the cam stretching up to the maple and glass top limb. The top limb was the bow's only part that flexed. The single cam eliminated the need to synchronize 2 cams. Matthews Archery revolutionized the single cam bow in the 1990s by using a wheel on the top limb to control the string movement. Those solo cam bows actually matched the speeds achieved by dual cam bows, but with less hand shot. Not much of a hand shot was there. Simply put, they shot really nicely. The compound's cables, which worked with the cams as draw force multipliers, were actually strands of steel cable until the early 1990s. Today's compound bow cables are actually twisted strands of synthetic fiber, just like bowstrings. These fiber strands are just as strong as steel cable, but lighter and less expensive. Other advances include the move from wooden risers to aluminum and carbon risers. Some companies in the 1990s also built risers with magnesium. Grips on risers also shrank. The compound's earlier wood plastic or molded-in grips were so massive they filled even larger hands. These big grips also created hand torque all too often. Competitive archers quickly recognized this problem and removed or filed down these grips. Today's grips, slim grips, completely combat torque. The connection systems on limbs also improved from those early years when some limbs pivoted right or left. Today's bows have pockets that seat limbs very soundly and securely. Speaking of limbs, those initial one-piece models had forks cut into the tips to allow the cams to roll. Split limbs are now the norm. They create a wider limb stance to improve efficiency and reduce vibration. Tuning compound bows is also today getting very, very easier. In the past 2 years, in fact, many companies have introduced simplified exact tuning technology which lets the archer pivot the entire limb pocket to fix right to left tears in paper tuning. Bowtech also launched its deadlock cam system which lets the archers turn a screw to drive the cam left or right on its axle to fix tuning issues. It is hard to think of another invention that has transformed this domain so radically as has Allen's compound bow. Allen lived to see the bow revolution begin, but he sadly died in a car accident in Montana in 1979, before the effect of his invention had been fully felt all over the world. Well, so much for today's lesson session. Let's quickly revise what we have covered today. Number one, as we started, we gave you the introduction of the bow. We marveled at the amazing transformation of the bow into the modern compound bow and how popular it is all over the world. Then, in the second part, we discussed some of the latest brands and the latest models of target compound bows, the latest model. In the third part, we revisited how the compound bow works and the physics and the principles behind its mechanical advantage. And yes, finally in the last part, we looked at the history of how the compound bow was invented and who was that amazing person who invented the most enjoyable sports and hunting archery equipment ever made in the universe. Well, thank you so very much. You made my day. Catch you in the next session, in the next lesson, and I'll update you with another great learning exercise. Bye. This is Shihan Hussaini. Bye-bye.